They're coming. They're coming your way. They'll be here soon. Will you be ready?
In 1964, British author Roald Dahl released the classic children's novel Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It received glowing reviews and praise from everyone who read it, inspiring certain artists and talents today. Sadly, as wondrous and fantastical as the book is, the book started off first as an anti-racial novel known as Charlie's Chocolate Boy. Charlie first started off as a black kid who was accidentally encased by this chocolate mold by Willy Wonka, and honestly, it's kind of scary the way it's described, like he can't see or hear or feel anything, and Wonka just sort of like forgets about Charlie as he's encased in this mold and nobody can hear him, nobody can find him, and like it's really disturbing. But that version wasn't made, sadly, due to the horrible things that were happening with Roald Dahl's own children. His 4-month-old was sadly ran over by a cab as his nanny was negligent of the stroller that she was carrying, and his daughter eventually developed measles that sadly proved to be fatal. This proved to be Roald Dahl's most difficult years, and this eventually led to him creating Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as a way to escape his heartbreak and mental anguish. As tragic as that story is, you can really see how Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory and Willy Wonka himself are sort of symbolic of Roald Dahl's personality, or rather, someone he would want to be. Someone who can overcome anything and do whatever he wants and have any miracle machine to help those in need or to make those people around him happy. And through Roald Dahl's hard work and effort and pouring his absolute heart and soul into this book, we have the wonderful creation that is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was a creative novel with vivid descriptions and a whimsical setting. It was a hit amongst kids and adults alike, so naturally a film would be made of the book, and naturally the author would hate it. Well, aside from the author, the movie itself was praised by audiences and critics alike, yet sadly it wasn't really a big box office hit most people might think it was. Despite this, it's considered a classic amongst many, and I personally think of it as one of my favorite movies of all time. I must have watched it like 30 times by now. Oh, and by the way, what Jay and Mike said about the movie is true. Everyone skips Cheer Up Charlie, including me. I don't know why, I just don't like that part. It's just shit. Aside from that though, there's a ton of classical songs and wonderful scenes. I remember loving the idea of a wall that never loses its flavor, banana, strawberry, schnozberry, whatever the fuck that was.
Who ever heard of a snozberry?
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Well, anyway, I suppose if this movie's gonna be here on Traumathon, then most of you who've likely seen it know what I'm about to talk about. But honestly, before we get into that, when you really think about it, this whole movie has a weird air about it. Yeah, it is a little charming and a little whimsical, like fairy tale-esque, but there's some weird moments. I mean, these kids in the factory die, explicitly die. In the new remake, it's shown that they sort of make the kids like deformed forever, but in reality, the book says each one of the kids die a horrible death. This movie's more of a slasher than it is an adventure. Then, of course, there's the weird imagery everywhere. And yeah, that one scene with the guy, the horns, it's funny now, but when I was a kid, I always thought it was like kind of freaky. Like, is this saying that TV personalities or the news is like the devil? Like, what? I even remember some of my friends back when I was like 8 years old cried whenever Slugworth appeared. I don't know why. I never thought he was that scary. He only shows up like maybe 4 or 5 times max in a total of like a whole minute in the entire film. But I think the one that really got me personally was the fizzy lifting drink. Just the idea that Charlie and his old man were gonna kick the bucket, no pun intended, by getting shred to pieces, knowing that they can't stop it and ultimately just accepting their fates. I mean, it's kind of grim. Well, I mean, yeah, sure, they learn how to get down from there by burping, but still, it's a weird scene. And also, that led me to learn how to burp on command. No, seriously, check it out. Yeah, see? I tried to do the alphabet. I was about to fucking vomit. I haven't done this since I was a kid. Shit's gnarly though, right? Well, no reason beating around the bush. Let's talk about the Tunnel of Terror. After possibly one of the most iconic songs ever created and one of the most brutal deaths happening, we're taken to the Tunnel of Terrors, a place where all of your worst nightmares happen. As the kids and their parents enter the tunnel, the colors get duller and the lights get dimmer. Things get more frantic as everything goes red, the passengers panic, and the tunnel suddenly flashes images of just generally icky and scary things, like a giant millipede walking on someone's face or a fucking chicken getting their head cut off. I'll hedge a bet that I can't show that part due to, monetization reasons, but I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking, holy shit, did that really just happen? It's one of the first instances of me ever seeing an animal get killed. Well, I mean that, and that one time my dad skinned a pig in our backyard. Yeah, that was weird. It tasted good though. It was also one of the first times I'd ever hear swearing from a movie. Listen. Hell is a big potty word for a little 8-year-old. Give me a break, would you? Of course, after all this horrible imagery is shown, we get that ever so infamous singing from Mr. Gene Wilder himself as Willy Wonka. Unfortunately, due to copyright issues, I'm really not allowed to show the entire song, but it's iconic. And then of course comes his iconic poem copied directly from Roald Dahl's rowing song poem. It wasn't part of the book, but I always viewed it as a sort of little nice tribute to the author, despite his dislike for the movie. Well, I should probably clarify too that Roald Dahl didn't actually hate the movie. He even acknowledges that there are some good parts, but he just didn't like it. But anyways, back to the horrible scene. Man, how many kids did this scene actually fuck up? I hear some people make theories that the poem Willy Wonka recites is actually in some way symbolic of how trapped these kids and their parents are, and how their fates are sealed shut. Whatever they do or want to do is already decided for them, and ultimately they will either suffer the consequences or relish in success. I personally always just thought of it as Wonka just fucking around with them. I mean, that part where he yells at them? That shit always makes me laugh. I don't know why, but it's just a genuinely funny moment. Like, this is the kind of shit a senior in college would do to the freshman as a sort of hazing ritual. Well, whether or not it's true, it's probably one of the most iconic and genuinely scarring moments in a children's film. Well, I'm sure there's more, but I'm certain we'll talk about those real soon.
Stop the boat!